And nevertheless, despite the clear breakdowns at the Capitol, we must get to the bottom of why that very day it took the Defense Department so long to deploy the National Guard once the need for reinforcements became patently clear on every TV screen in America.
At 1:30 p.m. on January 6, we watched as the Metropolitan Police Department began to deploy officers to support the Capitol Police. In doing so, the officers began to withdraw from the traffic control points that were jointly manned with District of Columbia guardsmen. At 1:49 p.m., I received a frantic call from then Chief of United States Capitol Police, Stephen Sun, where he informed me that the security perimeter of the United States Capitol had been breached by hostile rioters. Chief Sun, his voice cracking with emotion, indicated that there was a dire emergency at the Capitol, and he requested the immediate assistance of as many available National Guardsmen that I could muster. Immediately after that 1:49 call, I alerted the U.S. Army senior leadership of the request. The approval for Chief Sun's request would eventually come from the Acting Secretary of Defense and be relayed to me by Army senior leaders at 5:08 p.m., about 3 hours and 19 minutes later. I had already had guardsmen on buses at the Armory ready to move to the Capitol. Consequently, at 5:20 p.m., less than 20 minutes, the District of Columbia National Guard arrived at the Capitol and were being sworn in by the United States Capitol Police.
Said that you were able to get immediate authorization in the summer of 2020 during those protests. General Walker, was the issue of optics ever brought up by Army leadership when the D.C. National Guard was deployed during the summer of 2020? Was that discussed?
It was never discussed the week of June. It was never discussed July 4th when we were supporting the city. It was never discussed August 28th when we supported the city.
Did you think that was unusual?
I did.
Yeah, I also thought it was odd, and I think you said it was unusual and very prescriptive, that the January 5th letter required the Secretary of the Army to approve the movement of deployed guardsmen from one traffic control point to another. Did you find that unusual?
19 years, I never had that before happen. So on that day, the Metropolitan Police, as they would any other day, requested that a traffic control point move one block over. No traffic was where they were, so They wanted the traffic control point to move one block. I had to get permission. I told them, I'll get back to you. I contacted Lieutenant General Pyatt, who contacted the Secretary of the Army. I had to explain where that traffic control point was in relationship to the Capitol, and only then did I get permission to move the 3 National Guardsmen supporting the Metropolitan Police.
These are 3 unarmed National Guardsmen who are helping with traffic control, in part so that Metropolitan Police can do other things, and they were not permitted to move a block away without getting permission from the Secretary of the Army. Is that true?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that with the National Guard, it is much better to prepare them and call them into action and have a plan, which I know that I heard from Mr. Celestis that people tried to do. They called the chief, they called people and said, you want to have the Guard mobilized. And there was a discussion between you and Sund leading up to January 6th in which this was discussed, and you didn't get a clear direction to have them mobilized. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So I talked to Chief Sun on Sunday. I talked to him Saturday and Sunday. We talk. We're friends. Mm-hmm. I've known him for a long time. So on Sunday, I asked him, are you going to request D.C. National Guard help? And if you do, I need it in writing. It has to be formal because the Secretary of Defense has to approve it. He told me he was not allowed to request a support. And I asked him if he wanted me to share that, and he said, no, I can't even ask you for the support, is what he told me. Mm-hmm. But he did say, but if I do call you, will you be able to support me? I said, yes, but I have to get approval from the Secretary of the Army and ultimately the Secretary of Defense because it's a federal request.
General Walker, if the restrictions on your authorities hadn't been put in place by DOD, what would you have done when Chief Sund called you at 1:49 on January 6th with an urgent requests for National Guard assistance?
I would have immediately pulled all the guardsmen that were supporting the Metropolitan Police Department. They had the gear in the vehicles. I would have had them assemble in the armory and then get on buses and go straight to the armory and report to the most ranking Capitol Police officer they saw and take direction. And further, let me add this. So one of my lieutenant colonels on his own initiative went to the Capitol anticipating that we were going to be called. So he would have been there, and he met with Deputy Chief Carroll of the Metropolitan Police Department, who asked him, where is the National Guard? How come they're not here? And this colonel said, well, I'm sure they're coming, and I'm here to scout out where they're going to be when they get here.